Hello everyone, welcome to this video, and in this video we'll talk about the history of Linux, or what is Linux under the hood. So I'll not go that much deep into the history and all. I'll try to make it as a story so that it's easy to understand for everyone. And for that I prepared a small slide or picture or presentation, whatever you may say it. So let's get started with this one. So we'll first zoom into this portion where the timeline is there, and we'll explain what this timeline is. So if the row you can see here is like the timeline or the time frame, and this section tells you like what happened with this time frame. So we'll start with the Unix one, which says like normally it happened in 1969, nearby 1969. So where the first Unix was introduced in Bell Labs, and like in AT&T Bell Labs, I would say, because the research portion of the Bell Lab was AT&T. So but the problem is it was totally closed source, so you have to buy a license, then you can use their software. So this the bottom one says like you can get a license from them or buy Unix from them, and then you can modify the source code definitely and use into your commercial purposes. So that's how this all Solaris, HPUX, AIX, IRX, these are all created. And due to its closed source nature, at that time it was really hard to buy a personal PC. So normally PCs were available in big organizations, or maybe a good universities and all, or maybe research labs, that type of things. How we normally use the laptops as our personal computers and all, we can't buy at that time. It was really so costly. Then University of California, the Berkeley University, so that time they bought a copy of Unix, okay, and there the professors and the students started creating softwares inside the Unix, okay, and they released after that they released the whole thing with the softwares and all. But as you know, the main code was originally developed by AT&T, so they had to keep it the closed source way. Now after some time they also released the whole OS and whole softwares and all. The same logic and everything works as same, but into their own code, or maybe I can say it as a rewritten thing. But it was not actually a copy, but a rewritten thing with the same logics and all. And they then distributed this one, or published this one under the BSD license. So the first Unix was closed source, and then this was rewritten by the professors and students in the University of California, Berkeley. So they have rewritten everything and released as BSD license. So let's dive into the BSD license first, so that we understand the next phases also. So what BSD license is, like you can modify that whole source code, or anything you want to modify, you can modify it, but it is not obligated that you have to release the source code. So you can keep it with you, you can make it private or something, that's your own wish, but you will get everything free. And you can they released it free, so you can definitely get it free, and then you can modify it and use on your own, or maybe you can republish this also after modifying. So that's on to your own wish. So the main point here is you will get it free, and then you can modify it, then you may or may not release it according to your wish. Now after that, if we go to the next phases, I'll not discuss this macOS and all, because those are different. So that's the next tale of story. So directly then we'll go to this GNU and Linux, and shortly I'll say this FreeBSD, NetBSD, and OpenBSD, like these are part of the BSD. So FreeBSD mostly talks about the features and their robustness features and this type of thing, speed, these are all. And NetBSD is mostly with the minimal things, so that it supports every hardware and software, from new to old, everything. And OpenBSD is full of security, okay, they focuses mostly on security. And okay, so now let's head over to this GNU. Okay, one more thing, this BSD thing started just after 1 year, after this 1969, mostly by 1970 or something like that. And then you next go to the GNU and all. So Richard Stallman, there was one guy, Richard Stallman, you might have heard his name. So he liked Unix a lot, but the problem is, as I said, you cannot buy it as a personal computer because it's really costly. So what he started making softwares that is free. Okay, like the same type of softwares that are available in Unix, but he started to make it free, into his own code, and like rewritten the whole thing in his own code. But here one interesting thing is there, that software you can also use use in Unix also. Okay, the software that he developed, he started making a whole free software thing where he started making like a whole operating system on all to make it like free for everyone. But what softwares he made at that time was also supported by Unix. Okay, so if you have Unix and you don't want to buy any extra softwares or something, anything, you can just take it from his free sources and then you can install it in Unix. So that was a lot of interesting thing. And at that time, making the kernel was the hardest part. Okay, so he was making the softwares, but someone has to make the hardware. So that time this Linux torvalds came in. So we'll just move to here directly so that we understand what's happening. So at that time this Linux torvalds came in. So he was using MS DOS previously, but he did not liked it. So it's as always Microsoft. So then, but he liked the Unix one. However, the problem is with the price of Unix, that at that time it was not feasible to buy Unix as a personal computer, as I said earlier also. So what he did, he like somehow got access to the Sun OS version of the like this one, like the tutorials of the system calls of the Sun OS version. So somehow he got that, and then he tried to make the similar task for his own project. Okay, that's where he made the whole kernel thing. And Richard Stallman was already developing the free softwares, so they combined all of this to a GNU Linux. Now you might have been thinking like, what is GNU Linux? You already uses GNU Linux, like in Fedora, Ubuntu, and all. These are all GNU Linux only. Now the one question arises, like tell me an example that is not GNU Linux, that is everyday you use, like normally you see this Android phones, that Android operating systems, that is Linux, but that is not a GNU Linux. Okay, so that is an example of non-GNU Linux. So, but the most of the Linux desktops that you use, this Ubuntu's and all, or Fedora, those are all GNU Linux. So we'll come to these flavors later. So the GNU Linux is not only the combination of the kernel. There are more things that I'll just give you the highlights. Okay, these are much more things to actually discuss in details, but I'll try to give you the overall basics. So along with this Linux, like Linux kernel, we already have the bootloader that you might have seen when a Linux desktop starts. You see the grub bootloader. It's really one of the popular one. Now we have systemd bootloaders also. And then the command shells like this bash, zsh, fish, or something. These are all the cells that actually takes commands from you and then pass it to the kernels to do the jobs and all. Now we have the shell utilities, like the commands that you use, like ls, mkdir, echo, and all. So I'm not getting into the details of those. And command shells also, this the difference between those cells that I named, like bash, zsh, fish, and all. We'll make another video for that. And then we have background services also. Like normally if you install a database service or something, you have to run it in background, right? So those are called daemons. So like these services we install as like background services, and then we run it inside the server, right? So that's some examples of background services. And then we have graphical servers that are Xorg servers and all. So don't mix Xorg with X11, because like X11 and OLN that you might have heard, this new generations like Linux machines or Linux desktops as OLN, right? So this X11 and OLN, these are all server protocol standards. Okay, and Xorg is mostly widely like used server that like implements the X11. Okay, so don't mix the Xorg and X11 alongside. These things are X11 and OLN, those are protocols, and this is a server that actually implements this X11. Okay, Xorg is a server. Now we have desktop environment, and for these things also there is a hell lot of story with this OLN, X11, and all. Those are like if you might have heard about installing NVIDIA drivers and all, you might have heard this word like Xorg, then OLN, X11s and all. So that is another thing to say, and is It's really great to understand those things. It's really interesting. Now the next thing comes is like desktop environment, that you might know, like this KDE, Plasma, this Genome. There are XFC, and those are there are many much more. Okay, and then we have package management like apt, then RPM we have, dpkg we have, yum, pacman and all. apt is mostly for like Debian based distributions, and RPM is like I guess you have heard about this Red Hat Linux and all those. Yum also is used in Red Hat. pacman you can see in arch based Linux distribution. dpkg also in Debian based. So these are another things to say, but the our whole thing was this one. Okay, one thing I forgot, that is like GNU public license. What is the difference between this BSD and GNU? GNU says, like, this strictly says if you will get it free, but after you modify the source code, you also have to make it free. Like you have to release the code. So BSD says you may or may not release. That's on to your own use. But GNU says you must have to release after you change or modify anything. So you have to make it publicly available. That's why the best thing comes out in GNU, because anything anyone modifies, anything anyone improves, those things also comes public. So the other guy can work on the top of that. Correct. So that's the thing. I will attach all the links that I've used to study or prepare for this video. I'll add them in the description box. If you want to know more or in-depth details of these things, definitely check these links out. I try to keep it as simple as possible. However, if you are curious enough to know more, definitely visit those. Okay, so that's all for this video. So next video maybe we'll talk about these things, different flavors of Linux and all. So stay tuned for the next one.